guys, it's Ty with Ty the Dog Guy on the Daily, and I want to talk today about management. Now, management, in the way that I'm using it, is a term that's often used by dog trainers, which kind of, what it means is setting up an environment where your dog can have success, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say, we work with a lot of dogs with aggression problems. And so we can do an enormous amount to help the dog. Let's say it's dog aggression. We can do an enormous amount to help the dog get over the dog aggression and, and not act aggressively and things like that. But let's say, we get to a certain point to where we kind of get to where there's diminishing returns, meaning, let's say the dog is perfect in scenarios A, B, C, and D, and E and F and G and H and I and J and K. But we get to scenario L, and what scenario L is being on a path like this and walking their dog, and here comes another dog charging them. And so, let's say in this scenario, their dog does perfect in so many scenarios where they used to be aggressive, but this is a different type of scenario where the dog is charging them, and it's a lot to ask that dog to be not aggressive in that moment. And so that's a moment, for example, where management would be key. Management meaning, all right, this scenario is too much for my dog. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get off the path 10 or 15 feet. We're going to step over there. We're going to have our dog sit or lie down. And if the dog comes charging at us, we're going to shoo it away or, even kind of kick it away or something like that. Get the dog away from us, because we need to manage that scenario. And so that's just one example of management, but management is often a very important part of long-term success, meaning putting your dogs in scenarios where, they're more likely to have success and more likely to be in a position to make good choices. Now, the problem with management, and what I recommend for those watching, now if you're in Utah, I recommend you hire us, of course, but for those that are out and about in different parts of the world, different parts of the country that are watching this, I want to kind of let you know something to watch out for when you're looking to hire a dog trainer. Because there's lots of dog trainers that management is more of what they do, and training is less of what they do. So they actually manage more than they train. So let me give you a couple examples here. There's a lot of dog trainers out there when they're dealing with aggression, like what I'm talking about, that say, well, just don't go into any scenarios. And so they really can't help the dog improve in any scenario. And so their solution is not a training solution. Their solution is, well, just walk your dog at night, or avoid all contact with other dogs, and things like that. Their solution is 95 to 100% management. So again, it's not even training. It's just setting up a scenario where the dog isn't going to do something wrong, not because it knows what's wrong, but simply because it can't. There's no other dogs around. Or another example that I see often from trainers is them saying, well, the client comes to them and says, hey, my dog chews and ingests socks, or my dog gets in the trash can, or my dog, chews on the chair legs or steals my shoes or whatever. And so instead of coming at it from a training perspective of saying, all right, let's teach the dog not to do that, a lot of trainers will come at it from a management perspective, saying, well, just make sure you clean up your shoes. All right, well, what if I accidentally leave my shoes down? Don't do that. So essentially, we're not going to train the dog. We're simply going to manage the scenario, and hopefully no one ever screws up and accidentally leaves out a sock or leaves out a shoe or something like that. Or why don't you just get a stronger trash can? And, that way the dog can't get into it, one with a tight lid or something like that. And so again, no thought of training the dog, which should be the dog trainer's job, of course. But instead, let's just manage the scenario. So, again, management can be important because there's certain, I mentioned earlier, there gets to a point where there's diminishing returns, meaning you can continue working at one skill set, but you can put in 10 units of work to get like 0.1 units of success, for example, once you get to a certain breaking point. But what I want you to watch out for is dog trainers who defer to management as their go-to. They're not training, they're simply just setting up scenarios where the dog can't do anything wrong and ignoring what real life is like. Now, real life is going to require management. And so I wish I had a way to say, okay, this is a good amount of management, this is a bad amount of management. And there's no real way to say that. But again, what I will say is any trainer that defers to management, that simply says, let's manage the scenario around the dog, rather than teaching the dog how to interact with its environment, is a trainer that isn't very knowledgeable, isn't very skilled, isn't a trainer that really understands how to help dogs' behavior improve or get rid of bad behavior or encourage good behavior. So, yeah, do manage your dogs, but be careful that you're not managing yourself into a situation where you can't live a normal life with your dog because you're constantly, having to adjust the environment around the dog so that the dog isn't forced to make actual decisions that are difficult.